record is clear. Obama has expanded and institutionalized some of the more appalling aspects of the insecure and obsessed state that he inherited. Today, the president claims unprecedented executive privilege. In the name of security, is Obama casting aside the rule of law and other constitutional rights? To crosstalk America's imperial presidency, I'm joined by my guest, Michael Kugelman in Washington. He is a South Asia associate at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. And in New York, we cross to George Samueli. He is a fellow of the Global Policy Institute of London Metropolitan University and author of the upcoming book, Bombs for Peace, NATO's Humanitarian War on Yugoslavia. All right, gentlemen, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I very much encourage it. You know, Michael, if I can go to you first, we're calling this program the Imperial Presidency. And I'm thinking back to Richard Nixon, and that's what he was accused of. But do you think when we compare like Nixon to Bush Obama, there's really not much of a comparison? We do have something like an imperial presidency now.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
Okay.
I would say Obama, you know, he was swept into power in 2008 as on change, on hope. He was very idealistic. So originally, he had foreign policies that were very different from what had happened in the past. You know, he was saying we should engage with so-called rogue states. He was saying that we should make this huge effort to engage with the Muslim world. So he gave a very famous speech in Cairo. He even went into the very sacrosanct U.S. policy on Israel by really pushing the Israelis to do more on settlements. And he wanted a big strategic, deep relationship with Pakistan, but all of that basically didn't work out.
Why?
And I would argue that he's become much more
Tell us why.
toned down.
Why did it all change? Because a lot of people will say he looks like Bush today.
Well, in some ways he does. I mean, in a country like Pakistan, a country I look at a lot, he's launched many more drones than Bush ever did. So on that, I'd say that you could make a comparison. But I really think that he's not a so-called neoconservative. He may have come across to some as one, you know, earlier on, but he's not. He's a realist more than anything else. I think he's trying to. He's aware of the fact that there's no desire in the United States among public opinion for wars. You know, he came to office wanting to get out of Iraq and finish things up in Afghanistan, which he's doing not too well in Afghanistan. And I think you see right now in Syria a really big example of many people, whether in Syria, elsewhere in the world, who want a more robust U.S. role, even some sort of military role in Syria. But Obama is not willing to do that.
Okay, because the U.S. doesn't do it very well. George, imperial presidency, your thoughts, please.
Yes, I do absolutely consider that it's been an imperial presidency under Obama. I think without a question that Obama came into power with enormous the uplifting rhetoric, and he's maintained the uplifting rhetoric throughout these years. But the reality of his policies have been very much in continuity with the Bush years. And you know, when you think of the regime change, which I think is certainly very much part of the Bush foreign policy, regime change in Afghanistan, regime change in Iraq, Obama has subscribed to that. He pursued a regime change in Libya. Did all of that really, you know, with minimal interference with Congress, minimal input from the United Nations. And he has been clearly pursuing a policy of regime change in Syria. Now, he hasn't got in directly. He's, you know, he's been cautious about getting a direct U.S. intervention, but he has unquestionably been pushing towards an intervention. And it is by no means clear to me, at least, that America won't get involved in Syria sometime in the very near future. I mean, for instance, I mean, you know, despite all the talk about the upcoming conference in Geneva, it's, you know, the Americans are already pushing for the lifting of an arms embargo against the Syrian rebels. Now, this is clearly a violation of international law. I mean, there's just no question about it. You cannot sell arms to non-state actors. I mean, this goes against the United Nations Charter, it goes against any number of United Nations declarations, and this has been Obama's policy. So, you know, this is very much, obviously there's some differences with Bush, but it is a continuation of the Bush foreign policy.
You know, Michael, what's the difference between a neocon and a realist in this context? Because I think what you said was quite interesting.
Well, I mean, I think a neocon, if we hearken back to the Bush administration, is really a mentality, a thinking that really emphasizes unilateralism, going forward and doing things.
Isn't use of drones is unilateral, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I would say if there's one comparison you could make between Obama and Bush and the so-called issue of neoconservatism, it would be the drones policy. But, you know, going back to Syria, I don't know if I would agree with the assessment that we just heard, because, yes, it's true that the Obama administration wants regime change in Syria, but I think just about everyone else does as well. Folks in Syria, people in other governments in the West and elsewhere, in the Middle East as well. And I think that a neoconservative, or at least when I think of a neoconservative, I think about folks that say, you know, to heck with what other people think. We're going to go ahead and do what we want. But I think in this case, Obama reflects public opinion in the United States and elsewhere around the world as well. Drones, though, absolutely is a very different story, and I definitely concur on that point.
George, do you want to jump in? I mean, in regime change in Syria, a lot of people want it, but for a lot of different reasons, and not good reasons or honorable reasons. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, without question. And while you know, many people may want a regime change, I don't think the considerations of London and Paris really matter very much. I think the issue, it should be up to the Syrians to decide whether they want regime change or not. And it's by no means clear that the Syrians are really so desperate to get rid of their present regime and replace it with some form of Islamist dictatorship. So those are the views of the Syrians. Now, the views of the former imperial powers, Britain and France, who ruled over those lands for many years, I think that they should take second place. So it is clearly that this is part of an imperial presence. It's an imperial mentality that assumes that somehow it is up to the Obama administration to decide who rules Syria. I mean, to say that Assad must go is somehow as if it's up to Obama, up to Cameron or Hollande to decide, you know, whether Assad goes or not. That's essentially the imperial presence. And now, you know, there may be differences on this or that policy, but the mentality whereby somehow it's the leading Western powers that get to decide who rules where and, you know, what weapons anybody can have. That's the imperial mentality, and that will, you know, leads inevitably to wars. We had the war in Libya. I think that there's a pretty good chance that this Geneva meeting will end in failure. I mean, the Americans are doing everything they can to sabotage it, and the conflict is going to go on, and you know, at some point, the Obama administration will decide, well, we really, for humanitarian reasons, we really have to intervene.
You know, Michael, is there a bipartisan foreign policy in the United States now? Because there seems like there's so much continuity from Bush.
Well, I mean, that's hard to say. I
know think tanks don't like to think that way. I know think tanks don't like that, okay, because it endangers a lot of jobs. But, you know, policy-wise, seriously.
Well, I mean, no. I think Washington, as you know, it's an extremely polarized town, and there's very little bipartisan accord on anything, including foreign policy. And you heard, you know, last week, President Obama made a speech about